to The Knowing Show. I am your host, Christine Marie, and I am so honored and thrilled to have the one and only Susan Campanella joining us tonight. Beauty entrepreneur, passionate for women's personal and professional growth, investor, business owner, entrepreneur. Susan, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's such a privilege to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited and thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited, especially because we're talking about something, frankly, that we've never talked about here on the show. It's a topic that, frankly, I think that when we hear people talk about betrayal and how to recover from it, there's almost a whisper, like we don't really talk about those things because it's scary. I think that there's fear around it a lot, and also it's almost like if I was to think about for myself why I don't talk about it, it's almost like you don't want to cause any trouble and you don't want to
Mm.
like risk exposure. And there's something around hiding betrayal and hiding the truth that is really, really dangerous. And so tonight I'm excited to shed the light on just even this concept in general of how to engage post betrayal, how to speak the truth, and how to do so with sophistication. Again, because it's easier to hide, it's easier to live in fear than to shine a spotlight on the dark places. And so, for those reasons, thank you again for coming and being willing to talk about this. I found you actually on LinkedIn, and I was really drawn to a post that you had pinned on your profile. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to read a section of it because it was so profound. So the question I get most: how do you bounce back from betrayal like that? Here's the truth. I didn't bounce back immediately. For months, I questioned everything: my judgment, my vision, my ability to trust again, whether I was cut out for this. But during those dark months, something interesting happened. And so, with that, I'm going to hand it over to you. I'll let you go ahead and just kind of tell the story leading up to this moment. The honest reflection that you gave there around, no, I didn't bounce back. I actually ended up questioning judgment, vision. Can I trust again? And honestly, even yourself at a molecular level, I think that that's what betrayal does, is that it holds up a mirror for us and we're like, what happened? Like, what's real? What's going on? And so, can you kind of share some context? We talked about this beforehand, to respect your experience, respect the people involved. We're not going to say names and get too specific, but if you could set the stage here, that would be helpful to give context, and then we can continue.
Awesome. So yeah, I think there are two aspects of that whole experience. The very first aspect, post the experience, was the pain. When you own a company, you treat it how everyone says it's your baby. Your company, it's your baby. So, but it's really just that emotional connection that you have with something that you have built. So when you just see everything come down to like pieces, of course it's going to hurt very much. But not just seeing the company get destroyed, but your vision, your passion, everything that you had, inside that particular business just now turn into dust. Yes, you experience that side of pain, and then you have to deal with that vulnerability that now as an entrepreneur you have to face, and I think beyond the fear, when you do experience this whole thing of betrayal, beyond the fear, it's the embarrassment, it's the vulnerability in front of so many people, your customers, the people that used to work for you, the key connections and friendships that you had while running the business. It's really facing that, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't want to face that, and and maybe they would just rather hide it. So what I tend to do, which is a little bit different, because I have experienced other pains in my life, in my personal life. So that moment of feeling the pain, I just do it privately. I just take my time. I take my time off and I deal with my emotions. I deal with my feelings, because pain is just something you do have to experience. You can't pretend not to have the pain. You can't pretend to make it go away right away. You have to have your time to experience it. And then after that fact, um, now you come back to life and then you experience the reality of judging yourself. So why did I get here? That sucked. That was really bad, but was it my fault? Like, and then you try to find who to blame, for going into that whole experience. But at the end of the day, we just have to own our mistakes. And even though this particular individual, gee, such an evil person, and not just evil, but the guy pretended to be someone that he never was. And I do have to be careful what I say because the individual does have the audacity to look for me online and see what I'm up to. So the lies, the promises. At the end of the day, regardless of how that individual was and what he intended to do to me and the company, um, it was my decision to let him in. So we had operated a company for 5 years, and we had built this amazing operational infrastructure that was solid, robust. It was pretty good. And we decided to bring on this investor, and he pretty much just turned everything into pieces. Um, and it's easy to blame him. But at the end of the day, did I ask the right questions?
Right.
And after experiencing that pain, I was faced with, okay, what did I do? I need to learn from this, experience. Did I ask the correct questions? Did I do my due diligence? When you own a business and you have investors, they're really good at doing their own due diligence, but as the founder, you have to do your due diligence as well. So did I do a correct due diligence? Did I investigate this individual further? And there were a lot of no's in a lot of the questions that I was asking myself. So this whole experience just really taught me, I guess it also took me to another level as to um, understanding relationships better, and being bold enough to to say no. Maybe this, in my case, an investor might come and say, hey, I have the money. Uh, but we have to be bold enough to say no if 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 it's not the right individual. And I was afraid to say no. I did see a few red flags at the beginning, and I was afraid to say no. First time I was raising money, and but I've learned so much. I've learned so much. But that's how I see it. Like the whole experience of betrayal and leading with the pain. It's experiencing and feeling the pain, the emotions, the feelings, and then when you're faced with what did I do, just own your mistakes. Own your mistakes, and okay, what can I learn from this, and how is this going to help me, moving forward in the future when I find investors? What is something that I will do this time around? But I guess it's just part of being an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
facing the good and the bad, and keep moving forward.
Right, man. There's so many things you said here that I just want to double click on because whether someone actually here in the chat said, they don't own a business, but what some of the things you said, Susan, actually are so applicable for all of us, regardless if we have a business or not. Because I know I've experienced betrayal in friendships, and so and in partnerships too, where somebody makes a promise and then they don't follow through. So, and I'm sure here's the honest to God truth. I'm sure all of us have somehow made others feel like we betrayed them because we weren't doing our due diligence and, okay, well, what does it look like to be a good partner in return, to be a good friend in return? So there's the both sides of the coin that I think are really helpful for us to examine. So when it comes to when we do feel betrayed, whether it's as an entrepreneur or as an individual, those 3 steps, we have to feel the pain. We have to
Mm.
actually move through it. We were sharing on the Knowing Show the other day about how emotions are almost likened to a tunnel, and how you have to move all the way through the tunnel of the
Mm.
emotion or the pain. Otherwise, you get stuck in it. And then you
Mm.
wonder why you're not able to move forward from that moment in time. Well, you're not free from it. You're still literally stuck in that moment. And so I love that you started with, you have to feel the pain. And
Mm.
then in terms of owning it, I just appreciated your honesty, where after you kind of felt the pain, your natural inclination was to blame. And it's like, who can I assign blame for the pain that I'm feeling? Who can I point the finger to? But instead, it was, you have to own it. I've always heard people say, if you're pointing the finger at somebody, look at the 4 pointing back at you. And
Mm.
you're like, oh, that's
Yes,
so
yes, I agree.
I love to hear your thoughts on this whole concept of what happens externally often can be a reflection, almost like a mirror for us. Like, it's holding up a mirror for us. And so if we've experienced betrayal, what are some, like you said, a couple of questions here. What can I learn? How will this help me moving forward? And I would just love to lean into that a little bit. And frankly, let's actually back up to the feeling side of things. You mentioned, taking a moment to really feel the pain and actually like really honor that. Someone the other
Mm.
day said that when they lost their business, they just slept for like a number of weeks, and they just,
Mm.
they lost their business, so they didn't have a job. But instead of just going right back to the grind, their part of their feeling the pain was actually through rest. And so I'd love to know
Mm.
your thoughts of how can you really feel the pain, and where do you start with that? Because we're not taught how to do emotions.
Mm. Yes, I agree. I think the majority of us want to find a way to move away from the pain, or
Mm,
just try to minimize the pain as much as we can. It's just part of like a defense mechanism that we all have as humans. Um, we do get scared of feeling the pain. We get scared of going through the feelings, the emotions. And we either find, I don't know, maybe a good glass of wine to have with our friends so that we can just forget for a moment. And for others, it can be even more devastating, as to the route that they choose so that they don't feel the pain as much. How I see it is, I know my instinct is going to want to run away from the pain. Like we don't want to stay there and feel the pain, pretty much. But to be honest with you, how I see not feeling the pain is trying to be someone else. So I just want to be me. So I'm very into okay feeling vulnerable. And I've read, oh my goodness, her name. And she's all about vulnerability.
yeah,
Brown.
Brene Brown.
Yes, 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 yes. So she
Yeah.
is, oh, that book was amazing
Oh my gosh.
because
It
it,
changed
it
my
really,
life, Susan.
yes, yes. It's an amazing book. Like, it's okay to feel vulnerable. We feel scared. We feel embarrassed if we feel vulnerable, but feeling the pain is just part of being, finding your true self. And it's okay if you want to cry. It's okay if you want to feel mad, if you want to feel anger. It's okay if you feel like a failure. It's okay to feel all of those feelings. um, but it's what you do with those feelings. Sometimes we just have to sit down and feel. That's, if I felt very angry with that particular experience. So
Mm,
anger was like like the protagonist of that whole experience,
yeah.
but I just, I it was okay. I told myself it's okay to feel this way. But moving forward, this is going to be my fuel. Moving forward, I'm going to remember how I felt. I'm going to remember the bad decisions that I made. because I will move forward. So I know this whole entrepreneurship, thing. It's a whole mentality uh, uh, thing more than anything. It's understanding a lot of aspects about yourself, and even though you lack a whole bunch of skill sets, you just choose to move forward. You just choose to face your weaknesses. You
Mm,
choose to face your failures, that you don't know it all, that we're always going to be learning,
yeah.
and just use that experience, especially if it's negative, and as fuel to keep moving forward. So that's how I've seen it, pretty much.
So good. I want to, there's a couple of comments here that I want to just bring frankly for your thoughts, because some of these are really really good. Um I'm scrolling back up to this comment, but effectively it has to do with the fact, and I'm so sorry I lost this for context, but effectively they're saying that self-betrayal is the worst kind of betrayal. So not just to be
Mm.
betrayed by someone else, but to actually betray yourself. And so
Mm.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, because I'll share my thoughts here in a minute, but I'd love to hear from you first, Susan.
So self-betrayal, I think that whenever we move away from our true selves,
Mm,
we are self-betraying. We're betraying ourselves.
mm,
So, and at the end of the day, it's like such a deep personal battle to betray yourself. You
mm,
know, it's you against you. Um,
yeah,
it's you owning the stuff that you need to fix, and just do it.
yeah.
Don't try to paint a picture that's not you. Don't try to move forward in a way that it's not you, with the emotions and the feelings that are not from you, but you're just trying to paint this persona so that you can move forward. No, like in any way that you can be you, that you can heal so that you can move forward, do it, because there isn't anything more satisfying and fulfilling than just being yourself in any shape that might look like, so that you can move forward. Because at the end of the day, we can try to pretend to be someone else. We can try to pretend to be likable, or be I don't know, maybe someone that, I don't know, maybe your spouse or your family members might want to see in you.
Mm,
But that can only take you so far. It's when we are our true selves, and we are experiencing what we need to experience, using what we experience to move forward, that we could really reach our highest potential.
mm. I couldn't agree more. Christopher says here, he says, effectively the verse in Romans. I don't know if what your faith is, but he just brought this up, which I really, really love. Effectively, we must embrace our suffering and confront it, because what that does is that it produces character. And then that
Yes,
effectively in the moving through the pain and the cultivation of resilience breeds hope, and I actually really really love that you brought that up, Christopher, because I think a lot of times in the ignoring of the pain and in the ignoring of even our own self-betrayal, we're just continuing to hide the truth and continuing
exactly.
further away from ourselves. And so to just everything you shared is so good,
Mm.
and I wanted to add that kind of as icing on the cake, because and to what you were saying about, we have to effectively know who we are in order
Exactly.
to not betray it. Like, do I even know what my values
Mm.
are? Do I even
Mm.
know what are the guideposts leading me forward? Do I know where I'm heading? And I just
Mm.
think that that's really, really important to ask those questions. So I'm so grateful that the concept of self-betrayal came up in the comments, because
Mm.
that is really important. It's like, okay, how do we respond to it? But how do we respond to
Mm.
ourselves when we do experience that? And so, to the second point that you made about owning it, about
Mm,
really, really looking in the mirror. And this is applicable for whether it's in business or ourselves, and whether we
mm,
were the ones that we betrayed ourselves or someone else betrayed us. But looking in the mirror and just being taught, really, really taught, what can I learn here? How can I take that?
mm,
Alcohol is one of my favorite concepts. Taking something that just is so devastating and so painful and finding like the threads of hope to pull on and choosing to do so. So I'd love to hear from you in terms of, it took you a little while to kind of reclaim your vision and even put aside judgment over yourself so that you could see what you wanted to take into the next step and next journey of your life. So how did you actually go about effectively dreaming again? It's like, Susan,
mm.
once your dreams are dashed, it's so hard to recover hope.
Yes, I agree. And it's funny that you mentioned that because hope was definitely something that I was feeling like I was losing it.
Mm,
I am a Christian woman, and I think that that is what kept me, um, I say alive, but
mm,
it's my hope was alive because of that. Um, but at the end of the day, I realized that it was, and the verse really just, it's all about your character.
yes.
So building your character to continue making decisions, because at the end of the day, moving forward is a decision, you know,
Mhm,
and it's the character side of things that allows you to continue making the right decisions. You
mm,
know, we're not going to be perfect, we're going to make more mistakes, but it's in the building of your character that will help you make better decisions than in the past. So
mm,
how to get back up really was about fixing those things around your character at the end of the day. You know,
yeah,
like in my case, I wasn't asking the right questions. So, but I needed to build character for that. You know,
mm,
I can look back at those years, that experience, and be like, oh my goodness, like really? I could have saved so much by having a stronger character back then.
mm,
So it's funny because that one aspect was my biggest aspect, you know, not having a stronger character um, for my particular experience.
mm,
So when you realize that, when you go through the emotions, you go through the feelings, you own your mistakes, you understand that your character was being shaped, it was getting
mm,
polished pretty much. Um, it just
yeah,
you regain hope because you understand that the journey that you went through had a purpose. You know, it
right,
wasn't all about, oh, this guy came into my life and unbelievable. Like, why did I make
yes,
that decision? It wasn't just about that. It was the fact that I had to go through that.
mm,
That was my best because we have, you know, all best possible worlds that we can, you know, I could have not gone through that, but that was my best possible world. Like I had to go through that to really get to where I am when it comes to my character.
right,
So understanding, feeling, understanding, acknowledging, owning it, um, it's what allows you to regain your hope and
mm,
understand that, hey, God's with you. Like,
mm,
get back up because He's going to continue. You know, understanding that God is in your life, it's not equate having a perfect life.
yeah,
Um, it's
you can
that,
say that again.
you know,
Oh my
we all
god,
wish we could have the perfect life, but it's just, it
yes,
doesn't work like that. It just doesn't work
mm,
like that. But it's getting back up and understanding, hey, all right, you know, he's going to be with me again. I learned so much. I learned so
right,
much. You know, I was my true self in the journey of healing and now moving forward. Um, and but yeah, I guess those are just stages in your life when it comes to betrayal in my particular experience, that different stages that you just have to experience, truly experience, and learn from every single stage in that experience to regain your faith, your hope,
Mm,
and keep moving forward. It's scary. It's scary when I see my future. I have a whole bunch of questions. Am I
yeah.
going to make the same mistakes? Am
Mm,
I, am I going to be weak? Am I do I really have a stronger character to make the right decisions, to make better decisions? It's scary. Moving forward, it is scary. But but man, life is too short. Like, just go for it. I know I have to go for it.
that I love that. Sawboss on YouTube says good character requires accountability. I love that. I actually think that that's really really important in terms of having. Actually, we just started. We're starting on Friday, but I gathered just invited folks who wanted to grow or strengthen one key area in their life. I just invited them to join a 61-day challenge that we're starting on Friday, where it's what's the one thing in your life that you need to change, and then we're gonna be accountable, and we've got a WhatsApp thread where we're just going to be sending each other updates every day. Are we staying on track? Are we actually doing the thing that we
Mm.
said we would? And to your point about the character building that produces hope, I love that. Talk about alchemy. It's just such a beautiful way you do that. And
Mm.
when we see other people's stories, I actually think that this is part of where other people really do come in. So I'm glad you brought up accountability, because not just for keeping us accountable, but also we get to have more hope for ourselves when we're not yet on the other side, when we see the stories of other people who have made it through,
Yes.
who
Mm.
have learned. What can I take from them? Last week on the Knowing Show, we had someone share where when they kind of reached their lowest point in their business, they were really able to rely on all the communities that they were part of, like professionally.
Mm.
And I think community too on a personal side. Who are the people in your corner? Who are the people on your bench? And
Mm.
frankly, are they better than you in different areas? Do you actually have a bench that you're proud of that will make you be better? And so there's something around, in order to have accountability, we need to audit the people and
Mm.
communities that we find ourselves in, because we
So
really do
true.
like them. So if we're not continuously growing, I think it's a good opportunity to just take a quick audit. Am I putting myself in the spaces and in the rooms, even just for the folks who are here on the chat? It's like we're
Mm.
all right now engaging in growth actively.
Mm.
And so I just wanted to also, you said this, and I thought that this was so brilliant around experiencing whatever you're experiencing. uh, Effectively, we cannot actually learn the lesson if we do not experience the pain from
Mm.
it. And so if we're not willing to feel it, we cannot learn from it. And I just wanted to pull that out, because a lot of times, to your point, we're afraid to feel. And you said this at the
Mm.
very beginning, underneath the fear and the hurt was actually embarrassment. And that's a big thing. Are we
Mm.
actually embarrassed? Are we actually ashamed of what it is that we went through? So if we're not willing to look at the shame, then we're never going to be able to actually get free from it. So I wanted to just ask you, like, how did you actually end up realizing that embarrassment was there? Because I think for all of us, we can relate to that on some level.
Yeah, for sure. Well, in my case, building a company, you want to be the best at it. You want to be your competitors. You want to let the world know that you're doing an amazing job, that you have the best team ever, even when you do, and that you're building something alongside your team members that's truly amazing. That's helping a lot of people. That is, in our case, we were in the beauty industry, so I had a huge focus on empowering women. So I wanted to make sure that what we were building was really leaving an impression in the lives of all of these women.
Yeah.
So and we did it in so many different ways, through emails. We did it with social media. We would even do it like super special in the packaging, and we would leave motivational messages in the box, inside the box. So we were very intentional with just being super um, motivational and leaving an impression and influencing women in a very positive way. So when you have this huge castle of all the different pieces and ways that you're doing something amazing, and everything just comes down, because at the end of the day, people are going to look at the top. People are going to look at the leader. What did she do? Like, what in the world? Like,
Mhm.
and of course you're going to feel embarrassed,
Yeah.
because for whatever reason, that happened, it's, you failed.
Mm,
You failed. So um, when you go through that shame factor, and this is something I experienced big time, it's
mm,
like a cleansing mode.
mm,
you 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 understand your weaknesses, you understand the stuff that you need to fix, but somehow you really, um, I guess you realize the real people around you. You had, in my particular case, I had a lot of people around me. And after all of this happened, including some team members, um, I really understood who was really there for me,
mm. Yeah.
because, yes, you had stuff, you made wrong decisions, but we are not perfect. And not everyone understands that. A lot
Right.
of people are going to expect the best of you every single time. And that's
Right.
just not true. It's not true. So, um, the whole experience really shows you who were your real friends
Mm,
after everything. And, I guess it helps you deal with the shame. The people around you at the end of the day are gonna, it's your community, your
mm,
people that are gonna help you, get through everything.
right.
And at the end of the day, it's just a few. It's just a few. In my particular case,
Yeah.
it was just a few, but they really helped me deal with the embarrassment.
What a good point around, honestly, and it's vulnerable to open up to them in the first place, but when you know that you can trust them and really kind of unveil yourself. And you said this at the beginning, Susan, which was just really, really beautifully said. Effectively, everything in your business turned to dust. And as you said that, it reminded me of the allegory of the phoenix rising from the ashes and beauty from the ashes. And sometimes the most beautiful things really, truly do come from the ashes. And I'm even thinking of, it was only recently that I learned that a butterfly actually completely dissolves in the cocoon. Like it actually turns to mush. Like if you were to open a cocoon, there's no caterpillar. It is completely dead. It is
Oh,
completely,
wow.
and then this completely new entity emerges. And so, in order to get to that point, it's like, okay, what is the confines of my cocoon? And the people, the environment, the self talk. Who said this earlier? Um, I can't remember who said this, but effectively, like we can only control ourselves. And I thought that that was just such a good aspect. We can only control ourselves, and yet we also do have the choice over who we intentionally curate around us and the environment
Mhm.
that we create. One of the things that stood out to me, I think this was probably 2 years ago, I just had this moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm creating my own environment just like my parents did. So the environment that I used to place so much blame over for, like, this is why I am the way I am. Granted, I love my parents, and still there were things that really weren't healthy. And so it's so easy to assign blame for things that we don't like in our life today.
Mhm.
But then when we look in the mirror and realize, oh, but I'm actually responsible now for becoming the parent for myself and creating the
Mhm.
environment. Even before I don't have any kids, but how much more so when I do have children. So there's this element of we can only control ourselves, and we also have so much autonomy to curate the people around us, the environment around us, what we're telling ourselves, our inputs. There's we can't forget that. Like, yes, we can
Mhm.
control our response, but we actually do have a lot of power over our stimulus. If we're angry about what's going on in the world, or if we're angry about this person, or angry at whatever the emotion is, whatever the stimulus is, maybe we can choose not to engage, you know, and choose a different input. Uh, Christopher says, I ascribe to the Stoic approach with a dichotomy of control. We only have, you said it, you said it, Christopher. We only have authority over our own thoughts and actions rather than external influences. This shapes character rather than reputation. I love that. And it really is so true because the reputation, man, that's something that can get us really hooked up and actually can keep us from speaking the truth because of what people will think. So I just love that the dichotomy and juxtaposition here of both, being so careful and curating the room that we find ourselves in.
Yes, yes. I would, I guess, finish that point by saying that not just in business, but I think in life, we have to be super flexible.
Mm,
And that, I guess that concept is, to me, it's easy to understand in business because as you grow, and this goes with, if you're building your family, you're building whatever it is that you're building. But as you grow and you build, you tend to become more stiff when it comes to your ego.
yes,
Okay. So flexibility allows you to fall and get back up easier because you're not afraid of bending and being flexible, even in moments where you're not, super happy and a place in a situation that you wouldn't want. But the flexibility allows you to feel embarrassment and be okay with it. Feel pain and be okay with it. Get back up and, find the people, let go of people, just be flexible all the time. I think that is one particular thing that I have learned in my life to keep me strong. So I guess that has been my defense mechanism. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to feel, like you don't have a particular skill set. Like it's fine. Just be okay with it and keep moving forward.
so good. Keep moving forward. That's good. I love that. Um, I'm gonna try to not butcher this, but Vukalexic, Vukalexic. He says here in the chat, first forgiveness. Torturing yourself with something that has already been done and that you cannot change is not worth your time. And so this he brings up an interesting point around forgiveness, like the thing perhaps that helps with letting go and moving forward. And so I'm so glad you brought that up because I actually think that that's it. Maybe even that has to be a step in the process, right? A step in this
Mm.
cycle of being able to release and let go. So it's like we do have to feel it to move through it because otherwise you do get stuck. And then taking radical responsibility for like, okay, what am I going to change for next time? And then I'm wondering your thoughts, Susan, is forgiveness kind of part of being able to actually move forward? Because that is in and of itself the letting go piece.
Yes, definitely letting go. In that part where you're feeling all of these emotions,
Mm,
you choose what you want to do with the emotions. So when there is not when inside of you don't have that sense of forgiveness and really letting go, you are holding on to one of those emotions, and it could be anger, let's say, in my case. If I don't let go of that emotion, it's okay to feel it for I guess a certain time, but eventually you have to let go of that emotion because it will really bring healing into your life. So when you don't let go of that particular emotion and you continue to hold on to it, and days go by, weeks, months, unfortunately sometimes years for a lot of people,
yeah.
there is nothing positive in you as you move forward. It's
Hmm.
like you are going back to the hole. So, true liberation of the experience itself is releasing all of the emotions you actually experience and
Mm,
truly moving forward as like you mentioned, a butterfly, as a new individual completely. And it's so liberating. It's
yes.
so beautiful. It's so peaceful. There's so much joy, and when you are experiencing, if I would say, if you are not experiencing all of those beautiful emotions, you're still holding on. You're still not forgiving,
Wow.
you know? Yeah.
Wow, that's honestly what a good so in business for those of you who haven't heard this phrase, I love KPIs, key performance indicators. These KPIs are effectively we put in place to help us know if we're being successful and if we're on the right track. So with these key performance indicators, I actually really like setting those in place for my own personal life and having peace be one of them. And
Mm.
peace for me is a sign that I have actually like, it's kind of the result of living a disciplined life. It's like, oh man, when I'm operating within the boundaries that I've set forth for myself, peace is going to be the outcome. And another one is if I can remember my day from yesterday, that means I was present. And so these little KPIs help us know, like, oh, am I actually living the life I say that I want to live? And I think that this hallmark and benchmark of peace is one that just it proves so many different things in our life are in alignment. If we
Mm.
actually can be at a peaceful state, David Hawkins has a book called Letting Go, and he
Mm.
assigns numerical values, so like 50, 20, 100, 500 to certain emotions. And shame is I think it's shame at the very bottom is 20. Pride is 150, courage is 200, peace I think is 600. And so it's like the higher up you go, as we let go of the negative emotions, we actually get closer and closer to peace. So I love what you said, Susan, is so profoundly impactful that if we're still having negative emotions around someone or some event, we probably haven't gotten to the point of peace yet, and
Mm.
probably gotten to the point of forgiveness, of really letting it go. So thank you for saying that. I think that's something I'm going to be taking with me. I think that we all needed to hear that tonight. So thank you.
Yeah, sometimes going through, certain experiences is when you are able to go back and realize all of
Mm,
that, just
yeah.
experience. And we all want beautiful experiences, but even the bad ones are
Yeah.
great because they allow us to see things that,
Mm,
we wouldn't normally easily see, I would say. But yeah.
love that. That's
And
so
and peace is something you cannot fake.
yes.
You cannot fake.
It's
You
so
cannot. You just can't fake. You
you
know.
can't fake it.
You
That's so
know.
good. I want to read two things from C. Martin Love. Hello, friend. He says, "Forgiveness is not a feeling, but a conscious decision to let go of
Mm.
vengeance." And then he also says down here, "Forgiveness releases you from the burden of the past, preventing the offender from controlling your emotions."
Yes,
So
I
so
agree. So
so
true.
good. Um, and I just want to read one more here, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up. Nasto Kilian, researching a point of serenity, or reaching, I'm sorry, reaching a point of serenity shows me that I have properly accepted life as it is and am content with where it has taken me. I love that. Y'all,
Beautiful.
thank you so much for joining us tonight. One of the things that I just want to close with is that in the pain of betrayal is actually exactly where I found my purpose, what I'm called to do
Mm.
in life. And so if I hadn't felt it, I probably wouldn't have come to know it. No, feeling the pain leads to knowing our purpose. And so thank you for Susan, just your example of living this out by example. It's a painful thing, and yet when you actually are at the point of teaching, how much more have you grown to
Mm.
optimize it? So thank you for everything you've shared with us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been wonderful. So thank you.
Wonderful. Y'all, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'll be live again tomorrow morning. We'll go through A Course in Miracles, lesson 27 at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. And so with that, thank you all so much for joining us.